everybody. Welcome in. It's the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football. 25th of February. We are ready to get things underway. Thanks so much for joining us. And it's getting towards the end of the month. And then we have March. Big month if you're a sports fan. We've got Michigan football and update. What's going on with Kyle Whittingham's team as we get ready to flip the calendar? The Michigan hockey team is set to play their final regular season games this upcoming weekend. We'll update what they are looking at in the postseason. Everything that goes into this final weekend for the Icers. But we're going to start with basketball. I know they just played last night, and they got the victory over Minnesota. We always invite your thoughts. If you were with us last night on the Michigan postgame live show, we talked about Michigan winning the Big Ten, getting a share of the Big Ten, and they were able to do that. Now they've got still 3 games remaining. And so, heading into that game last night where they were, a 22.5-point favorite, seemed like it was going to happen for sure. Just a matter of playing it out. And then, afterwards, and then, really during the game, people are like, what's wrong with Michigan? Why do they look like they're, disinterested? Why is it playing out like this? Is this something to be worried about? I've seen from whether it was on the Maize and Blue Review or on Twitter. I mean, this is fans have their opinions, and you have a game like that. So Yak's scoreless in the first half. Yaks must be hurt. Yaks is looking towards the draft. Yaks disinterested. Why is this team jacking up so many threes? And what's the problem here? I think all of that, just take it one by one. I don't know. I don't think Yaks is hurt. I think that this past Saturday, Yaks had a chance. You only get one a year. It's like winning the Heisman Trophy, to be the player of the year in college basketball. Now, this is just me guessing. I think that what you saw from Yaks in the first half against Duke, if he came out and put another 17 up, scored 30 points, and Michigan won, there'd be a big conversation about, hey, Yaks could be the Naismith player of the year for the number 1 team in the country. Michigan lost. Yaks didn't play. He didn't put up many big numbers in the second half. And so as far as player of the year, that slipped through his fingers. Michigan loses the game. It's not all over, but I think that when you play a game of that magnitude, and then you also have pretty much the Big Ten wrapped up with Illinois losing to UCLA, and then you're a 22.5-point favorite, I think all of that combined to the folks saying that they look disinterested, and then they weren't shooting well. Now, they made 5 of 15 threes in the first half, and shooting threes immediately when if you're only up by a little, or certainly if you're down and you're Michigan, what else are you going to say if you're a fan? Because you want to say something, I guess. You're going to say this team shoots too many threes, pound it inside. Now, I have been that way too. I remember after the Nebraska game, Yaks wasn't shooting well from downtown. Cadeau wasn't shooting well from downtown. Said, I want to see these guys in rhythm, in the flow of the game. Shooting threes is fine, but let's, go inside out. That's not what happened against Michigan State. Yaks took a 26-foot three from the wing and buried it. And Cadeau kind of did the same thing, a couple feet behind the line. It was a long three, and he nailed it. But you didn't see everyone saying, "Oh, hey, wait, they shouldn't have done that. They should have gone inside out." My point here is it's a lot like, shooting threes and missing. Even if you have Michigan, the best front line in the country, it ends up being like football. If you go 3 and out, if you're watching, you say if whatever they did, if they ran the ball, they need to throw it. They got to stop being so predictable. If they're getting shut down in the air game, they got to commit to the run. It's like the same thing in basketball. You're just going to throw that out there. But the part where, to me, it's comparable, and they're comparable a little bit. What I just said is that when you get the rhythm and you get the flow, and you're the offensive coordinator in football, it's a lot easier after you see the play or how things are going. Say, hey, you got to stop being so conservative, or I should have gone for it, or they need to throw, or they need to run, or stay with the run. To when you're making the next call and then you get that thing going, it's the same thing when you start making threes. And anybody that's played basketball understands that you have 5 individuals out there, but they're really one. And one shot that goes in is going to help the next person when, even though you can have guys that one person can be hot and the other one can't, but you're all working together and, you get that rhythm. So there was some of that going on in Michigan's win. You play a game against Duke that has a Final Four aura, and you're playing a short-sighted Minnesota team. It's pretty tough to go out there and just act like it's again like a tournament atmosphere. There was no tournament atmosphere, even though they were playing for a championship, and they actually ended up putting themselves for giving themselves a Big Ten championship, a share right now, and it would be one of those things where it would be a major disappointment now if they just had a share, because they have 3 games remaining. That might have been a part of it too. Normally when we watch a team and you're thinking about the last game or two where, this needs to happen and then that needs to happen, and then, you could at least get a share or you could win it outright. Now, Michigan had 4 games to go and they basically already had this thing wrapped up. So, I don't know. I wasn't at the game last night, but I could also understand the fans not being just totally breakneck. It wasn't Duke. They just played Duke. This was a little bit weird as they've wrapped things up so soon. It took a little bit of the air out of the balloon when it came down to it. So that's what I was looking at from last night after I have now slept on it, came back here and wanted to talk about it. Now, all of that being said, you move on pretty quickly and you get to Illinois. And Illinois coming up on Friday at 8:00. Now, it's not Duke, but it's a return to conference play. Illinois is number 2 in the conference, and Illinois is ranked number 4 in the net rankings. Now they're a top 10 team. This is another, not going to be like Duke, but crazy atmosphere. I think you're right back in it where it feels like it's tournament play again, because it's at Illinois. And with these 3 remaining games, I don't think any of them are really easy, but I do think that this one's going to be the most difficult. On the road, fighting Illini, and Illinois is thinking about maybe they could get a 1 seed if things fell the right way. Of course, they're thinking about winning that game and putting it all into it. If you've got Michigan, if you're from an Illinois standpoint, you're thinking, we can beat Michigan. We can beat anybody. And if we beat Michigan and we win the Big Ten tournament, we could be thinking about rising all the way up and getting one of those 1 seeds. So that's a super hot game. And then Iowa. It's never a picnic to go on the road in the Big Ten. When you flip the calendar and then you get to March, Iowa just last week beat Nebraska. Iowa is an NCAA tournament team. So it's Iowa's last home game. That is, while you look at it, and out of the Illinois, Iowa, and Michigan State game, even though Iowa is on the road and Michigan State is the season finale at home, I would put the rankings on these last 3 games is Illinois being the toughest, Michigan State number 2, and then Iowa. But again, you're getting into March, and it's the last home game for Iowa, and that's not one that you're going to be able to just roll the balls out or think about, let's play the bench. They're going to have to play their best basketball to win that game. And then you got the season finale. Now, if Michigan already has the Big Ten regular season title wrapped up, and you think maybe that they would already feel like they would already have a 1 seed, but I don't know. If they win these next 2, it'll feel like that. But if they drop the game to Michigan State, I don't think there's going to be any problem with having your last regular season home game, not playing that one at a fever pitch, getting ready to head to Chicago for the Big Ten tournament after that. So, and there's not going to be any problem getting up for this game against Illinois. And then when you flip the calendar, I think these remaining 3 games, you're going to have a lot different approach mentally, whatever you can say a million times about playing the game last night. Yeah, you can have the banners and everything else and think about that, but getting it in all alone, not having to share the conference championship, that's when you're thinking about, all right. I remember a long time ago when Minnesota, I don't know how many, maybe it had been a long time since they won, and they had to vacate it, but they won the Big Ten title outright. And they cut down the nets at Chrysler. Well, Michigan, if they would win that outright, would they do that at Illinois? Do you say then you wait? These are all kind of things that you think about, and then what you would like to win that game on Friday and have sole possession, and then what you would like to do then, of course, is beat Michigan State, and then afterwards, Michigan's got a few seniors. And they're going to have, instead of before the game or at halftime, they're going to celebrate these seniors afterwards. Well, then they bring everybody out there and circle the rims and bring a ladder out and have everybody that, have this big celebration. That's a good plan. Of course, you got to win the game. It wouldn't be much fun if, let's say, Michigan won these next 2, they had the Big Ten title outright, but somehow they dropped that game to Michigan State. Yeah, you're still going to go through the senior night, but are you really going to bring the ladders? And maybe the fans will all file out and just be a bunch of, I don't know. I can't believe actually there will be many Michigan State fans heading to Ann Arbor for that season finale. But hey, I think Michigan's going to sweep Michigan State this year, so it's just something to talk about and just something to hit on. Now, if you had any thoughts on a basketball or football or hockey, that's what we're talking about right now. We always welcome those in. So jump on in if you've got something that you wanted to say on that. All right, we'll move on. And we head to football. Now, football is a long ways away, the start of the season. However, the start of spring football practice is right around the corner. It's less than 3 weeks. March the 17th. Now, if they really wanted to make it perfect, I like enjoying the winter sports and then transitioning over to spring football. And then, okay, then you get into the real spring and the summer and everything else. But it's never been like that. Most of the time, when the NCAA basketball tournament, when March Madness is getting ready to go, Michigan, I'll get an email. I'll say, hey, the coaches are talking today. It's the first Thursday of the NCAA tournament, and you're thinking nothing but basketball. And it's like, oh, here's football. March 17th, that could happen again with practice starting on that Tuesday. Maybe they do it the week before. They'll start bringing some coaches, and you see a lot of the players. As I look at the upcoming spring, I was thinking, well, what are the what's the big news? What are the talking points? What are the things that people will want to know? Well, the number one thing is going to be Kyle Whittingham and company. Everything's brand new. New set of coaches, new way. Are they going to? Is it going to be a new way? How's it going to be different? So all of that, the shift to Whittingham and just what it's going to be like. We've seen how Michigan has run things. It hasn't been this different since it went from Carr to Rodriguez. Hulk spent time at Michigan, had those Michigan roots. Of course, Harbaugh, there's nobody a Michigan man. And, Moore, who was under Harbaugh, there's some symmetry there. But now that's the biggest thing. So what's it going to be like with Whittingham? The other thing, I've seen a lot of, people, hey, this Michigan defense is going to be great. And, you had Alford come out and talk about the running backs, which, I think everybody should be excited about the running backs. Michigan's got a pair of what look like, outstanding running backs there. So I get being excited by them. I'm a little bit, I haven't caught Whittingham fever myself yet. I haven't caught Michigan football, Kyle Whittingham fever. It'll happen. I'm guessing that it's going to happen, but I saw there was just one pod. It came across my phone, and the headline, was Michigan's edge room, the greatest of all time, or something, for this year. And I was thinking, really, that's the angle. Somebody probably got a bunch of people to, come in and take a view, which is what you want if you're doing a show like this. But if I was just thinking about the defense and what the top news is going to be, I think their top two players, I'm guessing, are not going to play or participate at all in the spring because they're rehabbing from injuries. And John Henry Daly, if you could tell me he was going to be 100%, he was going to play from game one, that would be huge for Michigan. And the stories that came out when he was in the transfer portal was that he was going to be all right by the start of the season. That's what, I don't know, his camp was saying. Well, why wouldn't you say that if you're trying to grab as much money as you can and head a place of your choosing? But, it was an Achilles. So, if you map those things out, he's not going to be for spring ball. And then it's hopeful, you cross your fingers, that he'll be good to go when, fall practice rolls around. He'll be available for game one. But there's a question mark next to him. So as much as, I would like to lead the charge about, this Michigan defense is going to be awesome. And, he's could be you could say, their most important player. JHD, and his status is up in the air. It's a very similar feel of one of Michigan's top defenders last year, who's now we're back in the same boat with Rod Moore. If you could tell me that Rod Moore, and I don't expect to see any Rod Moore in spring, maybe that'd be a pleasant surprise, but if you had Rod Moore, and maybe he doesn't even know if he's going to be ready for spring let alone fall, whatever. But so to me, those are the two biggest things when I'm thinking about Michigan football on the field. On the defensive side as a whole, it's just Whittingham and how things are going to be handled and what it's going to be like with Whittingham and company. And then on offense, I think we all will look towards the quarterback in year two for Underwood and what the offense is going to be able to do with the new offensive coordinator, all new staff except Alford on that side of the ball. And then, get that passing game going, and Underwood's not going to have any of the things that we all talked about in year one. Him being 18, him just turning 18, him being a freshman, him not having experience. It takes a while. Now we're expecting, I don't know, maybe not a 100% complete QB, but one that's twice as good as last year. And so those are the things. Those would be the three things for me that I would look at. Whittingham overall, the defense, the two injured guys, and then the third thing is Underwood. And so just under 3 weeks, spring ball, coaches will start talking. We'll see what they have to say, players as well, on what it's going to be like. What we do know is that they've got this different leadership council. A third of the team has that designation. 4 captains they're rolling out there for 2026. You like all these guys. I think you like all the guys that are on the leadership council as well. And so that's just where we're at as we head into it. Now we go and think about what's next here. And for that, I'm wondering is why there's not one single comment. Usually we have at least, I don't know, 50, if not 100. But we got none. Maybe I shut them off or something. Let's see. Maybe I did do that. Show comments on stage. No, that's not it. Someone send a comment so I can see if it's working. Let's talk hockey. Michigan hockey team split a pair of games this past weekend in Madison against Wisconsin, winning 3-1 on Saturday night. Their ranking is the number 2 team in the country. The number 1 team in the country is down the road and wears green and white. And so heading into this weekend, it's the final weekend for Michigan before the Big Ten tournament starts. But when you have the Big Ten, when you are talking hockey, the Big Ten has 7 teams. So you get this situation where you get to the end and other teams are playing. And that's where we get when it comes down to what's at stake this weekend. Now, Michigan is pretty much secure in their spot as the number 2 seed in the Big Ten for the quarterfinals, which is now moved to just a single elimination. It used to be 3 weeks, and the first week was best 2 out of 3. Now it's single elimination. They'll play a game on Wednesday. They'll play a game, I believe, on Saturday. And then the following week, you're going to have the championship game. But it's a do or die. So it's a 1-game deal now. But Michigan still could, theoretically, as you look at the standings, you say, hey, Michigan's in first place. They're in first place by a point over Michigan State. True. But Michigan State has 2 games in hand. Michigan will play their final 2 games of the year, of the regular season, this weekend when they host Minnesota. And then they will await the Big Ten tournament. But meanwhile, Michigan State, they host Ohio State this weekend. And then next weekend, they go to Minneapolis to take on Minnesota. So what Michigan needs to do is win both of their games, collect those 6 points, and then hopefully you see Ohio State jump up and grab a regulation win. No points for Michigan State. And that would be what you would be looking for. What would be really great is if Ohio State swept Michigan State, the number 1 team in the country. You say, the likelihood of that happening low, let's say. And then, but I don't know. You go on the road the following week to Minnesota. It's a pretty big deal being able to win the Big Ten regular season title. Not only do you win it, and you're the 1 seed, but the 1 seed gets a bye, and that's pretty nice. And while that looks like it's going to be elusive again, Michigan hockey's never won the Big Ten regular season title. They've done pretty good in the Big Ten tournament. And so pretty quickly after this weekend, seeing if they'll have a chance to root for Minnesota or not. But if they're number 2, then, they're number 2. And then the focus is going to be on that Big Ten tournament before you get to the actual Frozen Four tournament. Should be coming up. They play that the final four. The Final Four or the Frozen Four is in Vegas this year. A little twist. Yeah, I do. What's up, Hadley? There it is. Thanks, Hadley. I got you. It was nice to see someone jump in. I don't know. Maybe it might be time to just start firing up the recruiting and start talking about recruiting because it didn't seem like a lot of people are interested. Where's the excitement for basketball? Where's the excitement for hockey? Spring football? What about recruiting? Okay, I get that. It's all good. So that's it for today's show. Coming up on Friday, that's going to be a great one. You got the basketball team on the road, Illinois hockey team with their final 2 games of the year. And then there you go. What's this? Western? I don't know what that means. I think that's where Western plays. Lawson. So, okay. All right. Thanks so much for watching. I would suggest if you like more Michigan news, head over to the Maize and Blue Review. We'd love to see you over there talking about all of these things and more with Michigan fans. There we got one last comment. Get one last one in. The punter says the Duke loss really took it out of me. I needed to see the team play really well. I need the team to play really well to restore my enthusiasm. I think it's understandable. The good part there is I think you just have to wait till Friday. Michigan comes out with a spirited victory, as any victory in Champaign. I think you'll be back. And I'm with you on that. Last night didn't do it, even though they got a share of the Big Ten. Completely understandable. All right, we will talk with you on Friday at 2 o'clock. Everybody enjoy the rest of their day. So long.